Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to 1% Better, where we take a look at hidden stories in sport. I'm Zylan Fanake, and I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful, intelligent co-host, Dr. David Lipman. I got a
Are
question
you
for you.
sucking up to me because you didn't do your homework? Is that what's happening here?
No. I got a question for you. I learned something
Okay.
new. Apparently, the hip flexors are not one muscle, but a group of muscles. Let's see if you remember this from medical school.
Iliacus, psoas major, and rectus femoris.
Okay, so out of that, which hip flexor muscle is the only one that connects your spine directly to your legs?
Psoas major.
Amazing. Well done. Anything
Yeah.
interesting you can tell us about the hip flexors?
Well, rectus femoris is actually one of the quadricep muscles. It's the one on top. So it both flexes the hip and extends the knee. There's also another small hip flexor called tensor fasciae latae, which attaches to the ITB and it tensions the ITB, and it has a role in flexing the hip as well. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, mate. But yeah, if you want to go functional anatomy, I'm like, it was in a subject I actually liked. So yeah, we can go there.
Are they
Love it.
important to stretch? Because when I first started having back issues, a friend of mine who's a ex-professional cyclist said, make sure to stretch your hip flexors on the bike. And I didn't actually understand until recently how big they are and the role that they play.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's lots of debate about what stretching does or doesn't do. I don't really have a dog in the fight or a strong opinion here. I like the cost and consequence of stretching them is probably not significant. So I see it as low hanging fruit for people who are having back pain, particularly if you spend a long portion of your day in a hip flex position and you don't spend any time in hip extension, which most people don't. It's very rare to get your knee behind your hip, right, which is a hip extension.
Yeah.
So if you don't do that, then yeah, it's use it or lose it. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't really see many scenarios on a day-to-day basis why you'd have to do that. I know I had a plumber around recently to fix my filters, and maybe he got into that position. Maybe people like that get into that position on their day jobs on a daily basis. We are supported by Precision Fuel and Hydration. You are fresh off the back just from the Ironman World Championships in Nice, and you got to spend some time with the PFNH guys over there.
Yeah, I went to the run they did with Pillar Performance, which was great. Good to see them all there. Got to see a lot of the team that we talked to behind the scenes in that. I had a coffee with Sam Shepherd, previous guest of the podcast. Saw Tash Cooper Smith there as well. She's prepping for Kona, so she's excited. Helped them do a little bit of setup of the place they had on the course. Had a bunch of tubes, like electrolyte tubes and stuff, and they were out on course yelling and screaming and did a big cheer zone, which was awesome. And I just had a chat to them. They got some cool research coming as well, so really exciting stuff and times for precision. But one thing to note for users, we have had a code change. So all of the links in previous notes still work. The links in our show notes are the same as they've always been. You are welcome to still follow those for an automatic application of the code. But our code has changed from OPB 2025 to 1PB 2025.
And
So
that
just a
one
quick
being the
note that
number one.
correct, yeah. So 1PB and the PBs are in capital letters, 2025. So that will apply automatically a discount of 15% to your first order, or not automatically. You'll need to use that. And if you want it automatically applied, follow the links in our show notes.
What were the Ironman World Championships like in Nice? I know you were peppering me with loads of videos, but tell me,
You're
what was the
welcome.
experience like?
Experience was good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I've not been to Kona, so I can't speak to Kona, but I thought it was great. Nice. The nice thing I actually liked about Nice for the World Champs is that it's not a bubble. They did like a whole bunch of Nice things were happening in Nice, and there was also a World Championships, so you could sort of get out of it a little bit. You didn't feel like everything was about triathlon all the time. You didn't feel like you got prouse gouged, all those things. So I really liked it in that respect. The run course is just atrocious for the athletes, but just so good for spectators to see them multiple times, that sort of stuff. Yeah, beautiful place, Nice. I'd never been. It was really good. Nice weather. I loved it, mate. It was great.
You look like a genius because Centaura Tech posted a video from you doing a live event there with Gustav Ide and Christian Blumenfeld, where you said, apart from all three Norwegians taking first, second, and third, what other predictions do you have? And when they did that, I can't tell you how many people DM'd us to our Instagram to say this guy is a genius.
I'll be really honest here. I don't like taking credit I don't deserve. I said that because if I hadn't said that and I said what's gonna be on the podium, they would have said we're gonna get top three, right? So it was more to get a better question out and to get a better answer from them than a real prediction. I don't think anybody would have predicted that. We're going to talk about our the Ironman World Champs upcoming, but yeah, I don't think anybody was predicting a Norwegian sweep of the podium. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, we got a big episode. This is a big one. We got so much to get through. You just had a call with someone. We're going to play that interview in this episode. Can you tell us a little bit about it quickly?
Yeah, so Joseph Mestrallet, he's the guy that did the data science for Tom Evans and Ruth Croft for UTMB. He also did Peter Engdahl's one from the CCC where he won it. So talking about data science, engineering performance, and how he worked with those athletes and how he works with athletes and his, a little bit of all that stuff, where he thinks trail running is going on that front as well. So great interview, really good guy, really giving with his time. So and very pertinent with his answers. So it's high density information in there, which was great. I think listeners are going to love it.
We've got so much to get through, so let's keep moving forward. We are also supported on this podcast by Stride. I saw Emmanuel Katsanis posted a great graph on our Strava group about his watts versus his gap pace. You're a nerd for those kind of things, so you love that.
Yeah, well, I think his point was, and I agree with him, is because people will say of Stride, like, oh, why would you use power? You can just use gap pace or those sort of things, or effort pace on Coros or something like that. And the problem with that is it doesn't encompass things like it encompasses maybe a hill, but it doesn't encompass things like wind or the difference between trail and road, right? And whereas Stride sort of builds that in and factors that in, so it's probably not quite as good, but as using that. But I think the correlation he saw was like 9.97, which I think is roughly 97%. He also made the point, and it's a great one because it's part of the key reason I initially started wanting to use Stride was like it doesn't factor shoes in. So shoes will change that because it doesn't understand. If you think about it, Stride is measuring what happens before the shoe, as in what it takes for you to produce force, and then the shoe amplifies that force. Whereas when you've got effort pace and those sort of things, it just looks at your speed versus things like heart rate or gap pace. So it doesn't really encompass like what the metabolism driving that is.
So interesting, man. You will also, if you'd like to see David's running form and how good he looks wearing these Stride power meters, we popped a photo up from these on our Instagram. Our Instagram handle is 1% Better Pod.
We popped up, or you popped up? You text me like, "Hey man, I'm going to do this thing," and I was like, "Okay." You send me a screenshot from the app. I was like, "Okay."
You're welcome, marketing genius.
No, I think it was good from you, but just like don't group me with you. I don't want any credit or any criticism on that. That is all you. You can have both.
By the way, if you want to check out Stride, we do have a link down in the show notes down below. That link is unique to our podcast and helps us a lot, so check them out there. Should we get through some community shout-outs? We do a Spotify poll every week to help you all join in the conversation about what we have to say so that you can have your say. A couple of things have popped up, haven't they?
Yeah, so I mean, we did a poll. We do them every week, as we say. There's the poll from the Clara Koppenberg episode has gone really well. That was the episode 3 weeks ago, and the question I asked there was: should cyclists be screened pre-race for Red S, similar to what we do in bouldering, right, or climbing? And we asked this of people who are on the podcast. We asked this of Clara as well. She talked a lot about how the team looked after her and do screening for her, and a lot of people sort of suggest that that's the case. And I think that's great. I really do. And I'm in admiration of the teams doing that because I was of the opinion that was probably not going to be the case. So, kudos to the teams. One thing I will say is that like it's not going to, you can't rely on the teams doing that is my take here. If you really want to stop this, you could say it's up to the athletes and the teams and just put your hands up and go like that is fine. My take is if we're really concerned about this, then it should be mandated centrally so that there's an incentive for the teams because the rider may not be able to ride. That's kind of how it is. Most people tend to agree with me. So 72% of people said yes, they agreed with me. 72.2. 22.2 said leave it to the teams. And 5.6% of people said no, we shouldn't be screening them. So, it is what
definitive.
It is.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm right, but people have varying opinions. But if we want to create change, the easiest way is to incentivize teams and riders to do the right thing by potentially not being able to ride if they don't do this, right? Like that's the biggest cost here. Whereas if you've got a good rider, someone like Clara, when she was at her lowest, right, the team has an incentive to let her race, which is she's riding really well, despite how unhealthy she is.
Yeah, that's so interesting, man. Oh, it's complex and it's simple at the same time. Look, I don't know. Teams might think that's a big decision to make, or the governing body might think that's a big decision to make. But for me, it's so clear what the upside will be. You will have healthy athletes. Like, unless it goes beyond the athlete level, it goes even further into a deeper human level where they still can't get over this challenge that they're going through, even though their career might be taken away from them or placed on hold, you know. But the way I see it is the majority of athletes would adhere to the rules.
There's lots of arguments here. One is it's not cycling's job. These are humans who are adults and consenting, and they get to do what
Mm,
they want, and that's a very reasonable argument. But if cycling wants to look after the rider's health, it should do this. That's really simple. It's like
mm,
this is if it says we really care about rider health, and this is one step they could take.
mm.
Similarly, if the team said that, the teams could do the same thing. But you can't rely on the teams to do that as a sport. You can't say, well, it's on the teams to ensure safety of the riders, right? So yeah, it's just again like don't pee on my boots and tell me it's raining. Like if you really believe that it's like you're about riders' health, then do the right thing with that respect. You can also not be, and that's fine. You say we're here to put on bike races. We don't care. Ride your bike. Super okay with that.
By the way, if you haven't listened to that Clara Koppenberg episode yet, which I can't imagine because it's one of our biggest ones to date, so thank you to everyone who downloaded and streamed that, and also the influx of subscribers we had. Welcome, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so now. But go and check out the Clara Koppenberg episode. As David said, it's from about 3 weeks ago. We got another comment in from Heather on Spotify. I hadn't actually seen this comment up until now.
Yeah. So she said. So you mentioned when we were talking about Sydney Marathon a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago. You said, "Oh, like participation medals because the Australians got medals in the Australian race, as the Americans do in the American races and the Brits do in the British races." And she said, participation trophies at a World Marathon Major. Say it ain't so. Oh, wait, every marathon major hands out medals to all finishers and celebrates all of them. So I thought that was a good take from her.
So good, man. Also, shout out to Tom Wallace, who ran 3:04 in the Dunedin Marathon after his sub 3 in Sydney a few weeks. Wow, a few weeks back. Big weeks for him, man. What a man.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it speaks to. I mean, I don't know how the Dunedin course is. Sydney's a little bit hilly. I assume Dunedin. I don't know much about it, so I won't want to speak out of turn there. But it speaks to the difference between peak performance and close to peak is it's like not quite as much as we think it is, right? So that's my take on that anyway.
I actually saw Tom went for a run after this marathon, his first one, just to test how the legs were. And he was listening to our podcast on that run
He
and
did,
said, thanks for the shout out on there. So now he's going to hear another shout out. If you keep running marathons every couple of weeks, Tom, we'll keep shouting you out.
especially if you're in the Strava group. So for those who haven't joined, there is a link in our show notes. Jump in there, share what's going on.
Okay, let's have a look at what's come across my desk. So, New York Marathon have announced two big names that will be taking part this year. They did it in such cool videos on Instagram, which is, yeah, I was so impressed by that. Those two big names are, tell us who it is.
Sifan Hassan and Eliud Kipchoge. So I reckon what's happened is they had this all lined up for a long time in terms of their years already. So they just have announcement. They have to announce things at the right time, right? These two ran Sydney, so they would have announced it just after Sydney, just after all that hype. So it's got a slightly better turnaround than most other marathons. The one other one they could have run that would have made some sense is maybe Valencia, but I don't think Valencia has the money to get them there, nor the incentive to get them there. So the turnaround here for them is 9 weeks, August 31st to November 2nd. So it's 9 weeks. So they probably have a week taper because you're not going to do a 2 week taper because they're not going to do enough training. So probably do a week taper, 1 to 2 weeks of recovery after Sydney. And so then you end up with a 6 week block on the back of what you've already done in prep for Sydney. So I think that's like not bad. They can probably do it. I mean, Sifan does all sorts of stuff. So yeah, she could probably handle it. I think she'll probably go pretty well in New York. Maybe not win it because it's a lot to ask to win 2 marathons in 9 weeks. But I mean, if she does, like, also if there's a runner that can do it, could be her.
Yeah.
And then Kipchoge, I mean, he's on a PR tour. He's made that pretty clear. I reckon top 10 would be a pretty good day for him. So,
But
he's historically.
how good is he for longevity? And I don't want to jinx him and not getting injured. From my memory, I don't know when the last time was he was injured. And for his age, this is incredible.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think we can lose perspective because we're so used to seeing him run 2:01 and win. But yeah, like he's been very clear about what his goal is now and why he's doing these things. And to be fair, he's getting tons of ROI and doing a bunch of stuff he wouldn't do if he was trying to win. So, like, take the win. pay him the money, take the win, do the things. I mean, I see Usain Bolt at the World Track and Field Champs looking just horrible. That guy is so out of shape, the poor dude. And it's
Wow.
like,
I was waiting to hear how you were gonna phrase that, and you went right in. It looked horrible. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, how is the greatest sprinter of all time looking like this, man? Come on. It's so interesting. I've worked in professional sport for a long time, and I have this game I play with myself where I visualize what the athlete will look like when they retire. And some athletes, they stay as close to the shape as they were when they were pros. That's just a lifestyle. They just love being fit and healthy. I must say, I was a little shocked just to see Usain Bolt and the way he looked.
I wasn't given he's on record saying he was too lazy to do the 400 meters. I was not shocked.
You always reckoned, yeah, he'd be even better in that. He was
Yeah,
born for that.
couldn't. He also, I heard it, the commentators talking when I was listening earlier today, Wade Van Niekerk ran in the 200, and they said that whenever they asked Usain about who he wanted to race, he said, I wanted to race Wade Van Niekerk over 300 meters. And I was like, that would have been a great race.
Yeah,
That would have been an
yeah.
awesome race.
We are going to talk about World Athletics Championships shortly, and no spoiler alerts, please. We are recording this after. Where did we watch up until? Up until day 4.
So I watched this morning's races. I haven't watched the 1500 meter final. I'm part of the way through the steeplechase, but I've
Damn,
otherwise watched
I've not
everything
watched
up to date.
today, so I don't know how I'm gonna avoid spoilers. Like I didn't even know Wade was running until it came up in my feed, and I quickly scrolled past it because I didn't want to see the result, even though I know it wasn't a final. But anyway, we're gonna get to the athletics shortly. First, we got to touch on some doping news. There's been some big stories the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, going into a championships, you always do have that. So Joyline Chegnego, who won Sierra Nacional and the OCC at UTMB, is serving now a 2-year ban starting on September 8th, with her results after Sierra Nacional disqualified, which includes OCC. So Sierra Nacional announced that it's banned her and her coach and the Milimani runners team, which is pretty significant. They've ordered him to fully reimburse the prize money, accommodation costs, and administrative fees arising from the case, including reputational harm. So the penalty reflects his previous history with doping in the event, which is that he coached the 2022 men's winner and women's winner, both of who tested positive. That was Mark Kengogo and Esther Chisang. And so they'll both strip their titles and were, popped for doping. So Salomon have terminated Joylin's contract as well. She was banned for using triamcinolone acid.
You okay, mate?
Jeez.
Are you okay?
Apparently not. I should have read this before. Triamcinolone acetonide. Anyway, it's a painkiller. Basically, it's a corticosteroid anti-inflammatory. It's banned in competition and needs a TUE. But this is one of the weird things. Like, she had pain. She saw a doctor. She got this injected. If that was out of competition, she would have been fine. If it's in competition and he fills out a TUE, she's fine. It was in the competition window, which is, when does it start? And there is an answer to that. I just don't have it for you. And then she's not fine, right? So there's an interesting article I put a link to in the bottom, written by Ian Corliss, talking a bit about this, that I sent you as well. It was a really well done article, I thought. So I would encourage listeners to go read that if they're interested in this case. It's interestingly, this is the same substance that Bradley Wiggins used pre-Tour de France victory. So there was some controversy about this. Yeah, some controversy back then about it as well.
Did you see her statement on Instagram? Kudos to her for taking full responsibility for it.
Well, I mean, you're always 50-50 on this, right? So one thing is like, is this the PR agency saying this is the best way to do it? Or is it just her going, I don't think it was a problem and I did this? Like, is she being completely honest? Because that's the way it comes across, as she's being honest. She's like, did this thing, didn't intend to cheat. This is why I did it. This is why I didn't tell my coach. We're good. I'll take the ban. It is what it is. Right? Or is it the PR agency saying, there's nothing you can say here except for say this?
Yeah.
So I don't know. And I don't want to be cynical. I'm a supporter, but like, that's just the reality. I think it's worthwhile giving a balanced thought about what could be happening here.
Yeah. We don't like talking about doping on here, but there have been multiple stories. What was the other one that you sent me that you reminded me of?
So Raven Saunders, is that the one you're talking about? Yeah. So Raven Saunders is the silver medalist from the Paris Olympics in the shot put. She's the one that wears those crazy masks and has green hair and sunglasses. So banned for whereabouts failures. So basically, you have to be tested. You have to submit where you're going to be so you can get tested at all time or every day. She did not do this, or she failed to be tested 3 times, or wasn't where she was going to say, or didn't put in where she was going to be for 3 times in 12 months, which constitutes a positive test for whereabouts failures. So that's backdated to the date of her last whereabouts failure, which is the 26th of December last year. She previously served an 18-month ban for whereabouts failures from August 2022 to February 2024. Then returned to make her third Olympic team, she placed 11th in Paris. She's previously done very well, though. Sorry, she didn't win silver there. I thought she previously won an Olympic medal. I might be wrong. She wanted. I read a statement from her. She said, "I'd like to make full disclosure that I already had intentions of retiring and stepped away, but I did not follow the proper procedures to officially retire." But she's also talking about making a comeback potentially for LA. So again, I don't know what's truth and what's PR spin, and I don't want to pass judgment. It is what it is. That's what's happened there, and yeah.
And then the next one, I'm going to leave the name to you.
Diribe Welteji.
I like how you're mumbling. How you're mumbling through it. No confidence at all. Okay.
No, I'm very confident in it because I listen to all the commentators talking about it all the time when she runs in the 1500 meters. So she was like one of the favorites for the 1500 meters, not called Faith Kipchoge. So she missed a doping test allegedly, and the allegation is she refused to take it in May this year. So then she was a silver medalist from the 1500 in the 2023 World Champs. She was cleared by the Ethiopian Anti-Doping Agency last month, but Athletics Integrity Unit, which is a centralized body which oversees doping cases on behalf of World Athletics, brought this to CAS. They appealed to CAS last week, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and it suspended her basically. They upheld that to suspend her. So she can't compete. Because historically, you've had the other thing, which is this goes to CAS and they say, well, she's allowed to compete, and then we'll
backdate it if she's still found.
Exactly, which is ridiculous. So, and the last thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot to finish prepping this. Let me read this for you though, because this is really interesting.
This is anti-doping news.
Yes. So the last one is about Sebastian Sawe. So he's running the Berlin Marathon this weekend, and he's one of the favorites, and very good marathoner, a good chance of breaking, running maybe a record. So he's set to run his third career marathon in Berlin. So in the lead up to the race, he and his management team they contacted the Athletics Integrity Unit to propose a special anti-doping regime to help dispel any potential doubts because he is Kenyan. So basically, the program involved at least 25 anti-doping controls in the last 2 months before Berlin. They included unannounced out-of-competition controls using the most advanced lab protocols. All testing was managed independently by the AIU, and the initiative was funded by Adidas, his primary sponsor. So it's a really interesting thing because you need to remove the athlete to some degree, because if he's paying for his own testing, you could argue that he can then bribe them and do all sorts of stuff. Right, so we kind of need to remove him, but it is incumbent to some degree on the teams to do this as well. And for them, it's great as well because it's positive PR on the like, we paid for this, we want him to be clean, and then also when he wins or if he runs a record or all those things, you can then be a little bit more confident and not have all those questions when he's holding up your shoes. So I think it's cool. I think we'll see more of this. The question is like, how do we instigate this more systematically? But I think it's cool and watch this space.
Yeah, I think it's really good from him and his team and his partners, because I think he's only going to get better and he's going to keep winning. So when it comes to perception, when it comes to legitimacy of results, being from Kenya and the connotation there at the moment, I think it's really, really smart from him and his team. And it can't be a cheap thing, but obviously I think it far outweighs the cost for someone like Adidas.
I agree.
We touched on it briefly, but let's go into some more detail on the Ironman World Champs in Nice. You got to hang out with the Norwegian hype train there. I would have loved for KB or Gustav to win, just because I feel more connected to them and I know more of their story. But, I mean, Casper Stoyan is pasted like an absolute pro.
Yeah, I think that's a good take here. And again, we're not going to sort of go into all the intricacies. We're more here to give, and this will apply to our World Championships coverage as well. It's more like deeper level insights, thoughts here. So I prefer this. And we were on a text message with Eloise Dulois, previous guest of the podcast, and she was like, this is so much better than Kona. And from a race jeopardy standpoint, 100% agree. I think it's also much more unpredictable as a result of that. But I spoke to Tim Hemming, one of the big triathlon journalists, and he made a really good point, which is that like there is a learning effect on this course. It's only the second time the men have raced there. The women raced there last year. Is like people will keep getting faster, and we saw that. We saw all the records broken, both overall time, overall time plus all the individual splits. So he wants to see more world championships there. It's obviously not going to happen, but I agree with him. I think it was really cool. I would like to see this move around a little bit more than just Nice, but yeah, it's interesting. Also, there was a 25-ish% DNF rate. So 13 of 53 pros. And only one of the top 10 from Kona was in the top 10 in Nice. And that was Patrick Langer.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd love a deep dive into that. Is that course related? Is that circumstances related? That would be so interesting.
So you had a number of debutantes who made the top 10 this year. And when I say debutantes, they were debutantes at the World Championships. So Casper, Jonas Schomburg is another one.
Yeah.
Can't remember
Jamie
who else.
Riddle from South Africa.
Jamie Riddle. Yep. Matthew Marquardt, previous guest of the podcast, got 8th and he got 11th in Kona. Yeah. So he kind of edged in, I guess, so to speak. So I think things like that contributed. Gustav and Christian. Christian had a bad day and should have DNF'd last year, but he had a bad day and came 25th, I believe, and Gustav DNF'd. So you kind of had these people that most people would have thought, oh, these guys are going to go well, and they didn't do so well. So that's the story there. I was interested in Martin Van Riel. So he did really well there, but he's barely been running because he's been injured. And I was thinking to myself, how is this guy going to run? And he ran pretty well. And I think it speaks to a couple of things, like his lifetime mileage, and then obviously the impact of cross training, because he would have been doing a bunch of cycling. And then super shoes, quite frankly, help reduce some of the damage on the legs that you just couldn't sustain previously, right? People running 2 marathons in 8 weeks, 9 weeks wouldn't have even been a consideration before super shoes. So, let alone something like, Tom did, where he did 2 marathons in, I think, the space of 3 or 4 weeks. So I think that stuff is all contributing to how he can perform there. Other things that I noticed, like, there's going to be some disappointed people, Magnus Ditlev, Sam Laidlow for sure. You already talked about Casper pacing the run super well. I agree. I thought that was really smart of him. Everyone was talking about how the Norwegians were going to work together. They don't work together. You go.
Do you have insight into that? Because I need to listen to your full podcast, but I briefly heard Christian talk about what him and Casper was saying to each other, and they were competitors. Yeah. They were playing. He was like, "I'm not going to lead. Like, if you don't want to lead, Gustav's going to catch back to us." Like,
yeah. So the way I asked them at the pre-race show, because this had been in the triathlon media that they were going to work together, and everyone was going to work for KB as though like they're all subservient to him. I can tell you they're all too competitive for that, and KB wouldn't want that anyway. And the reality of the situation is they're friendly with each other, right? Just like you are friendly with other triathletes in that thing. And the way KB said it on the night was, if Gustav's making a pass over a couple of people and he gets towards me, I might slow down a little bit to let him in, whereas other people wouldn't, and force him to go to the front. So that's friendly. But there's no way that and maybe they take turns, but you would take turns with people who aren't your friends as well, right? Yeah. When you're at the front, that's very
He's common. Only doing that if it will benefit him, not to his detriment.
Exactly. But once it gets to the run, it's all on. Gustav was like, I didn't want to lead the whole thing because I was just waiting for KB to run past me like he did in Kona. KB's going, I couldn't go. But then when Gustav asked, you're just waiting for the last 10Ks? He's like, yeah, of course I'm just waiting for the last 10Ks. So there was just as many mind games as there were any benefits there. I think they enjoy that it freaks people out when they see all three of them together. But the reality is they are just as competitive, if not more, than they are with other people. So the last thing was just, it was so cool to see how happy the Norwegian fans were. There was so many Norwegian fans there. They were so happy. KB's mum was stoked. Like, it was just cool to see. And like how happy Gustav was and that he's back, I think was just so great as well.
People are such big fans of Gustav, and I think everyone's happy to see him back, man. And people in my friends group, at least, they were rooting for him. So yeah, I could not agree with you more. I mentioned it earlier, the World Championships in the track and field taking place in Tokyo. Some insiders for listeners, actually, we delayed recording this episode so that we could fit more of the watching in, because, spoiler alert, I am not here next week. Next week, I'll be in Rwanda at the World Championships, and you've already recorded that episode with Christy Storich, a previous guest of ours who was so keen on guest hosting. We cheekily asked her to submit a piano recital Go listen to that episode to have context. I don't have time to give you context. But she did that. She sent us her playing the piano, and we're like, okay, you can guest those at some point. And I'm away next week. So you guys did an awesome episode. So we won't be talking about the full coverage of the World Championships. Today we're going to talk up until day 5. So if you're still watching, pause it right here, skip forward if you don't want any spoiler alerts. But man, what a good championship it's been so far.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been cool to have something on to watch regularly, even though yesterday was a bit of a chore to catch up on everything because I was away for the weekend, but that's okay. Good chores to have. I wanted to give a predictions update on my predictions from pre
Oh,
World
yeah,
Champs.
yeah, yeah. How did
So
that
I
go?
went back
Let's
and looked at
see.
them. So Jefferson Wooden won the 100 meters as I predicted,
Oh,
and
come
she
on.
ran.
That's like saying Tadej Pogacar is going to win the Tour de France. Come on, man.
Well, I mean, Julian Alfred was there and running well, so
Mm.
it's worth noting that. But she ran really well. She ran. Jefferson Wooden ran a 10:61, which is of course like a championship record and the fourth fastest of all time. So she
Dominant.
ran
Dominant.
properly well.
Yeah.
I called people to watch Nader and Laros and Habs in the 1500 meters, and I don't know the final yet. I didn't watch it just before getting on here, but Habs was knocked out in the rounds, so not looking great on that one. I was like, oh, geez, he's had a shocker here.
I couldn't
Uh,
believe that. Not making it through the heats. Wow.
I mean, I could, but it was just like, well, that's a bad take from me. I called Keishane Thompson to win the 100 meters. Didn't happen. Oblique Seville won that.
Can't fault
We'll
you
talk a bit
there.
more about
Did
that.
not see that coming. Oblique is like he's either on or he's not. Like, and when he's on, he's unbeatable, but he struggles to have that consistency in the big events.
I was going to say that it was the big race mentality he didn't have. So, it was an easy choice until he finally found it. And he ran
Mm.
fast too. So good on him. Uh, Cooper Lichtenhouse, I sort of said at the time he came out and ran so well, and this wasn't a prediction, but I just said, hey, this is a kid. He may not run that fast again. Like, be weary, be careful, let him be a kid. And like, you could see it. He was poor in his heat, quite frankly. Like he was tactically quite poor, didn't do well.
He was
He's
running in
16
like
years old.
lane 3 at one point.
Yeah,
I'm like, what are you doing? But I mean, he's 16 years old. This is the big stage.
exactly. And so there are two things here. One thing is we can't expect much of him, and the other thing is there are expectations on him. And I hope he has people around him to help him with that because he's now a pro. So like he can be 16 as much as he wants to be 16, just like Gout can be 17 as much as he wants to be 17. But like the reality is you sign pro contracts, people expect a level of performance. So you kind of need to you sort of need to be able to cope with those expectations as well. And it's quite hard. So, I haven't worked with these sort of athletes in terms of like world championship level at 16, but I've worked with athletes who are young and performing, and you do need to support them because it's hard. They're still kids.
I've got a question for you. I've only recently, in the last 2 years or so, started watching athletics more consistently. What I've noticed in these world championships is there've been a lot of falls. Is that normal?
Yep. I think it's been a little bit maybe worse this world champs, but it's certainly not uncommon in championship racing because no one wants to lead and no one wants to run fast, right? They want to win the championship. Whereas, a Diamond League, Pacer, everyone goes, it's a long line. Everyone's just like basically time trialing. And same with many other events. So I think that's part of it. There's also more people in these races because they have people from all over the world. They will have 10 plus rather than 8 or 9 in the race, right? And depending on the distance, right? So I think those are the two factors that are really playing into it. So yeah.
There also been a lot of false starts. You noticed that?
Yeah. Yes. So this was cool. So firstly, Shakira Richardson is lucky she didn't get disqualified.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
flinches in the blocks. That's
yeah,
usually a DQ because she's
yeah.
trying to put other people off. I don't know if that's why she was doing it, but that's the take. So she's quite lucky there. So American fans who feel aggrieved about like Cole Hocker getting disqualified, you got one back there. But shout out
Maybe
to
they
Joel.
disqualified him because of the ponytail.
I mean, they could have. It would have been reasonable. Um, Shout out to Dr. Joel Mason, aka Trackademic, on Instagram. I was actually messaging with him a little bit about this afterwards, and I said we are going to mention this, but he was saying that in the 100, or he put some data up, and we'll put this up on our Instagram during the week, that there were long holds from the starter. So generally what happens is they go, take your marks, and everyone gets there, then it's like set, and then they shoot the gun. And that cadence is usually pretty consistent and pretty not very long, and they're holding them quite a long time in set. And this is part of what's driving this, right? And so he was saying that because of those long holds, the reaction times are actually 14.5% slower than the last World Championships, which is so slow
Yeah.
comparatively. And then I heard a rumor that they changed the person for the 200 meters. It's a different starter for the 200 meters, and they certainly looked a little bit better and a little bit shorter when I was watching the 200 meter heats this morning. So super interesting. When I saw that data from him, I was like, that's amazing. That's great data.
I want to keep watching today. I'll watch tonight. I want to notice that because that's something I noticed just to the naked eye. I was like, oh, these holds are longer and more awkward, which makes the false starts then make sense, complete sense.
Yeah. You also have people who are maybe undercooked trying to get a good start or whatever else. I mean, I used to, when I was, and I ran mostly middle distance, but I used to have to run sprints and do some block starts because my coach thought it was important. And, on reflection, I agree with him. But I used to spend some time standing there listening to the cadence of the starter so that I could not predict it, but be a bit more comfortable with it and understand it. So, yeah.
Should we talk about the field events quickly? Usually I just fast forward through the field events if I'm honest with myself. But last year I came across Valerie Allman, who is a discus thrower. And what struck out for me was her build. She's built completely different to the typical discus thrower that you see. And then she was winning. I happened to be in Paris. She got gold. And I was like, oh, and she's good as well. Like, talk to me about this.
So most throws, it comes down to the physics of throwing. Shot put, the thing is heavy and it doesn't go very far. So height is a huge advantage. Height and mass are an enormous advantage in shot put. So all things the same, a taller person probably wins it just because you start from a higher release point, right? When it gets to hammer throw, you need to be heavy and ideally tall as well. Heavy because you have to counterbalance it and create rotational velocity. So again, the more you can counterbalance it, the faster you can move that thing, and then the better you can let it go. When it comes to, and it's quite a heavy implement, the hammer as well. The javelin is quite a light implement. So you see those people, and they have to move a lot faster. They have to run quite quickly. So they're built a lot smaller. The discus goes both ways. You have discus people who are very big, who are what you're talking about, and that's generally who ends up throwing. But you can also get away with discus by having really, really high rotational velocity, and it's not a very heavy implement. So you end up with these people who can be quite a bit smaller. So on the men's side, the Lithuanian bloke is also quite small. I can't remember, but he's one of the better throwers as well. I can't remember his name. My apologies. But you see this like hybrid, like it's the only throw where there's like not a certain body type. Everywhere else, it's like that's the body type, and you can pick them. So it was always an interesting thing there. But I mean, she's great. And, I wanted to talk a little bit about track events. Field events just in the context of like very good performances from very good athletes. And she won Tokyo and Paris golds. She's won the Diamond League 5 years in a row. She's got a gold in the World Champs now and previously got a silver and a bronze there. So, I mean, she's just unbelievable. She's almost unbeatable outside of World Championships in the last sort of 10 years, which is crazy.
Who else would you put in that GOAT category on the field?
Ryan Krauser. He's a shot putter from America. This guy, I mean, actually the shot put was a great competition. It's worthwhile watching. Basically what happened was like everyone just started stepping up and throwing further and further and further. And you start to see like big throw mentality, which is really cool to see. Munoz's got a national record to get second, which is awesome in a late throw. But Krauser came in super underdone and still nailed it. So he's the world record holder. He's got 3 Olympic golds. He's got 3 world championships. So basically he's unbeaten in major championships for like the last little while. And he's clearly the best thrower, like shot putter of all time, like by a country mile. And then similarly, Militatis Tentoglu, he's won Paris and Tokyo golds in the long jump and last 2 world indoors, as well as the last world championship. So let's see what I don't know. I didn't see the end of I don't think it's been yet, but let's watch Tentoglu as well. He's a great jumper, a Greek guy. And then of course, Mondo, like just killing it. Jumps world records as though it's like
this is the only field event I watched.
Yeah. And the only other field event sort of GOAT I wanted to mention is, I don't know if he's a GOAT yet. I don't think he's done enough, but Neeraj Chopra, the first ever Indian to win a track and field world medal, a gold medal in the Olympics, is the single most followed person, track and field athlete on social media. More than Noah Lyles, more than anyone else, which is crazy.
I wonder why that is. I need to go look at what kind of content he's putting out.
Well, he's an Indian athlete, mate, and India have got a huge fan base. It's just like
there we go, done. You're like a very fast ChatGPT. Don't even need to do any.
Well, it's the same as Virat Kohli being the most followed sports person. It's not because he's got a higher profile than LeBron in the international sphere. It's because he has so many home fans.
Makes sense. Yeah, actually, on that. Oh, I have a question that which I forgot, and now I'm glad I remembered. I wanted to ask you. In all these events like Olympics, World Championships,
Yeah.
you always see America topping the table when it comes
Yep.
to the medal tally. Is that because of population size, amount of access to athletes, events, and because of the size of the country? You reckon?
That's certainly part of it. I'd say they care a lot about it. It's part of it, right? You have to care and invest. They have a college system that develops athletes, right? And that develops athletes for multiple countries. I want to be very clear that at least the commentators I have are saying things like, based in America,
Mm,
they're Nigerian based in America or Kenya based in America. That generally means they're a college, or they used to be a
mm,
college and now they've stayed. So basically, there are very few Gauts and Cooper Lutkin houses who can come out of high school and be competitive. So it generally takes a little bit of time to mature, right? Most events, you're at your best in your 20s, maybe 30s or so, depending on the longer endurance events. So you need time from 18 when you graduate to that point, and you need good coaching and maturation. And so the college system, the NCAA system, helps them with that. It's got a good level of competition as well. So I'd say that's a big driver of it. And then population profile in the states. Into like Olympic sports are big in the states. Investment and then coaching as well. So all of the above, and they have a culture of most things there. You'll see, Kenyan distance running culture is good, but the javelin thrower had to teach himself off of YouTube videos. Like
okay.
that's not a culture of javelin throwing that's there. And maybe they will develop one now, but you have these things like, the Ukrainians have got a really good high jump culture, but not necessarily a great insert other thing, throws culture or something like that. So you often have these sort of clumps of people who genetically are gifted to one area, and that America has a broad genetic base, but then also a lot of success previously that are helping drive it.
What's your take on the broadcast? I've noticed some things I've never seen before. For instance, on the track, when the fastest two qualifiers that did not qualify automatically gets a time, they have like the small queue tracking so you can
Yeah.
see where they are in relation to the time. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really important for we've had this in swimming to some degree already. You can certainly do it, and I think it's really helpful to people who are watching, particularly the non-track fans. You and I don't really care about that, but I reckon that for the non-track fan, it's helpful, and even for me, I kind of enjoy it. I'm like, oh, he's behind or ahead of that. They've done that. They've done live positions in the 400 meters, which I think it's a bit messy, but it's kind of cool. It's like to help people who don't understand how it works. Also, it's like really good data on the screen for the marathon. I thought was really good for the marathons, and then some new camera angles. And maybe this often happens. You have someone like Grand Slam come in, they do some innovation, and then the
The
sort
big
of
boys
old head
copy.
goes, yeah, exactly, which I think is great. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We've seen some narrow margins of victory, haven't we? I know you've got, you saw something on social media with regards to some of them.
yeah. So shout out to Steve Mills on this on X. He said that the margin for the men's marathon was 0.03 seconds. And then I did some math, and it was 58 seconds between first and 10th. Not even a full minute for the top 10
Wow.
in the men's marathon, which is wild.
Wow.
There was 0.05 seconds, which is more time between the first and second in the men's 100 than the marathon, which is
That's
crazy.
insane. That's an insane stat.
It
And
is.
by the way, if
And
you haven't watched the men's marathon and the women's marathon final, go and watch it right now.
yeah, I agree. And then the men's 10,000 was 0.06 seconds, so marginally more than the men's 100 meters, which was also crazy. And then in the women's 100 meters was 0.15 seconds. So the men's 10,000, men's 100 meters, and the men's marathon were all smaller margins of victory than the women's 100 meters, which is crazy, which speaks to both how big the gap was in the 100 for the women and how small they were everywhere else.
We know our listeners love a marathon discussion. Should we talk about the marathon a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I one of the things I noticed was quite a high DNF rate, particularly in the men's. Like the
Mm.
women's was probably a normal amount at a championships, but the men's rate was quite high.
Is that because of the
It was,
humidity, or was it because of the distance a marathon is? Everyone's like,
I,
I
I
can't be
think,
bothered.
yeah. I didn't realize it was this far.
Yeah.
So I think a couple of things. I think people enter these things to win them. A lot of the East African countries, and so Renato Canova coaches a bunch of athletes. Many of them are Kenyan. He actually coaches Amanal Petrus, who got second, the German guy. And he always says like a lot of the East African athletes will pull out if they're not winning or not having a good day at the Olympics. And he just always talks about that. So it's a good chance for you to do pretty well as a non East African. There's also so that's part of it, I think. The weather is part of it for sure. And then people perhaps like with an eye on like, oh, well, this hasn't gone so well. I'd rather pull out here and take a payday at Valencia or something like that. So they probably have something in their pocket there as well. So, so that's certainly some of the stuff that I reckon play a role there. They were both fairly close, and I think that's weather related. I think people were a bit scared of blowing up, and many went and blew up. I was also interested in Patanane. She was a former Brit. She got third. She was from Uruguay. She went to college in the US. So again, she lived in Britain, spent a lot of time here, won junior championships here. She went to college in the US, and this is only her second marathon. She's actually born in Mexico, and she qualified with a 2:27. By entry standard, she was 29th.
Wow.
Right? But she was actually ranked like, so hang on. She was, sorry, let me get this wrong. Let me get this right. She was ranked.
You already got it wrong. Let's try getting it right now.
She was ranked 80th at qualifications, but 400th best this year. So she's ranked 80th because many people have, excuse me, many countries have multiple athletes. So like Kenya had probably 30 athletes or 40 athletes, maybe 100. And you can only qualify 3 to 4. So she was ranked 80th, 400th best results. To qualify, 29 people ran the standard. And by finishing position in designated competitions, for instance, a World Marathon Major, another 4 people got in. So then world rankings positions got 66 people in. And it's meant to be roughly a 50-50 split via entry standards and rankings. And I think part of this is because a lot of people are running World Marathon Majors instead of the championships as part of it. So there were no British women, for instance.
That's something I noticed was I didn't know a lot of the names, a lot of the big names, whereas typically when the names come up at the World Majors, I will know that. But regarding her, what you just said there, where she's ranked, how she got into this, her reaction on the finish line, it makes sense. I just loved her. She could not believe that she medaled.
Yeah, she didn't know either, which is even better. So I love that. On the broadcasts, a couple of things here. Like, I'm harsh on these broadcasters because I'd love this job. So, share this with your friends. Tell them to give me a job. Paula Radcliffe had no idea about what an Omnius was and how it worked. They kept talking about, and to their credit, they said it's not a sprint finish. And okay, but then she said it's a strength finish.
What is an Omnius?
Omnius are those headbands that they were wearing, like Sifan Hassan was wearing at the Olympics. The graphite rocks, evaporation, all sorts of stuff. I could talk about it for a while, but I don't really want to. We've talked a bit about them before on the podcast about how they work. But so she said it's not a sprint, or they said it's not a sprint finish. It's a strength finish. They mean durability. If they want to pick nits, pick them properly. Amanal Petros, when he finished, they're like, oh, he looks disappointed. If you watch what he did a Steph Curry ice in the vein celebration. That guy was stoked. Like, they just, a little bit old to understand what he was doing. Paula Radcliffe kept saying in the women's marathon, oh, they're going to not know that Sarah Sullivan's up the road a bit because they'll just see the one group. She forgot there were hairpins all over this course and they would see her running past. Like, be better. And then one of the things I thought, we needed more vision, and I say this because of how Valencia does this, we need vision back through the packs more. You had no idea that Patanane was even there. If you told me, like, she finished her race, I was like, who's this? Where's she been? What's she done? Why have I not seen her once? Not once did I see her. The whole broadcast. Like,
but you could argue that she was not a favorite. She was surprised that she medaled. So how are they to know to focus on her?
Well, because she was moving through the field. Like, she ended up in third. She didn't end up in third by mistake. Yeah, so at some point she was in fourth and closing, right? Or at some point she was in sixth and closing. You can surely show me...
It's not a sprint race, it's a marathon. So you can see
exactly
over time elapsed that this person's making up positions.
Yeah, and you can also go back and just show us other parts of the pack. There are people from all over the world watching, and I got to watch 2 East Africans jog next to each other, just like I do in every World Marathon Major. Like, thousands of people are tuning in to see their loved ones run. Like, give us some airtime.
Yeah. Why are we seeing such different top 10s compared to World Marathon Majors for the marathoners?
I reckon there's fewer East Africans. You can only have 3 or 4 is one thing. There's a bit of a win or bust mentality. We already talked for many, and then we talked a bit about, like, I on another race already. So I reckon those are the 3 reasons I thought about.
And then just before we get to our guest on this episode, any other observations? Anything else you wanted to mention?
Yeah, a couple of things. Simon Ehrhammer He is a long jumper. Well, he's actually a decathlete from Switzerland, but he competed in the long jump and did very well. He's been competing in long jump all year because there's not many decathlon competitions. But he's doing both the decathlon and the long jump. And I was like, this is awesome. And he's doing this in preparation for LA. And I think that's really cool. And I like the idea of the project in general. There's also one of the commentators said, Mono should just jump as high as he can jump so he can go to the decathlon because he'd be good. And I'm like, she's right. Because they do have pole vault, they have 100 meters, they have hurdles, and he'd be good at the hurdles. He'd be good at all of the jumps, high jump, long jump, all those things.
By the
So
way,
I reckon Mondo would be a good decathlete.
we just glanced over Mondo earlier. If you don't know who he is, Mondo Duplantis, best pole vault of all time now, broke the world record.
Comfortably.
Like, there's no one close to him. I was actually reading up on him in The Athletic this week because I always wondered, why does he have such an American accent? But he was actually born in America, and when he was younger, Sweden convinced him and his parents, who were also pole vaulters back in the day, to compete under the Swedish flag.
Yep, and he went to college in with Sha'Carri Richardson, actually. They went to the same class down at LSU. Yeah.
But it was so, just the way he broke the world record. If you, again, spoiler alert, first attempt didn't make it, second attempt didn't make it, third attempt, it was just he did it with the last attempt, and it was even better that way. Just like amazing.
It also speaks to a lot of people are like, why doesn't you just jump like 650? It's like, well, yes, the 1 centimeter, the money thing, but also it's not so easy.
A 1 centimeter money thing being he gets a bonus for every centimeter he breaks the world record by.
Every time he breaks a world record. So you go up in 1 centimeter increments so that you get a bonus more frequently.
Yeah.
So, yes. Okay. So that's one of the things. And then tons of people have changed nationalities. Again, Patanane being one of them, right? And it's, as we discussed in our episode from July 18th, small margins and marginal gains, actually with Dr. Sam Shepard. It was sort of one of the discussion points we had there about people changing nationalities in track and field specifically. And the last observation, Grand Slam track. Of the races, not the challengers who did one race, but the races, the people who were contracted by them, not many of them would be happy with their performance this year. The exception being Oblique Seville, who won it. But other than that, I think most people would be a little bit disappointed with how they've run, or how they've run. So just speaks to how hard it is to stay up for that long, be up that early, and then still perform at the end of the year.
What event did Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone do in Grand Slam? Did she do the hurdles? 400 hurdles?
Oh, she sort of fluffed about and did both. She did like the hurdles at one point, and then she was doing the flat 4 at one point and like that. Because my whole thing was, and I said to you this at the time, like if she doesn't get Femke Bol to do Grand Slam track, there's no point her doing the hurdles because she's like so much better than everyone else.
She's running 400 flat, and she was looking so good in the heat. I can't wait to see her in the final.
She is a chance at breaking that world record.
You reckon she'll win? Chance. She'll win, and she will break the world. And
she's a chance. I mean, she broke the American record and wouldn't blow out a candle at the end of that. Like, she's very talented.
It's unbelievable how good she looks, man. Right, let's leave it there. Should we get to our guest, Joseph Mestrallet?
Yeah, let's do it. So, Joseph Mestrallet is a data scientist, CEO, and founder of Enduraw. Additionally, he's currently the team manager for Nutri-pure, where he works with multiple elite athletes with a deep conviction. Mathematics are the keys to reach the last few % of performance. In his career, Joseph has worked with companies such as the UTMB Group and Morton. He has worked with athletes on track cycling records, Norseman pacing, and marathon pacing. He's here today to talk about his work in trail running, where he engineered UTMB wins in the CCC for Petter Engdahl and the UTMB for Ruth Croft and Tom Evans. He studied quite broadly with his qualifications in entrepreneurship, data scientist, and electrical and computer science from organizations such as HEC Paris and UC Berkeley. He completed his master's thesis on data science in analyzing and optimizing performance factors in high-level endurance sports. He is affectionately known as Monsieur Data, and he came to some serious notoriety when he ran Marathon du Mont Blanc with 13,000 euros worth of sensors attached to him in the name of science. Joseph, welcome to 1% Better.
Yeah, thanks, David, to host me. That's pretty very pleasure for me. I think we are discussing for so many times. So yeah, it's really a pleasure to discuss with you.
Yeah, and just up front, I wanted to mention this. I've been pestering you to come on this podcast for probably since it started. I think your work's been amazing, even prior to the wins for Ruth and Tom. I was very convinced you were going to do something like that very soon if you hadn't already. So it was cool to do. We've known each other for a long time. And just up front, I wanted to let you know that don't you don't need to worry about your English. I know it's something that's concerning you, and listeners need to be a little bit kind. I certainly cannot do any podcasts in a second language, so your English is great, and we'll be okay. We'll get through this. But let's start off. I sort of mentioned a couple of them, some of the projects you'd work on. But can you talk about stuff that you've done beyond working with Ruth and Tom, just so that people can get an idea of some of the breadth of your work, how broad it goes? Because you've done some stuff that, people probably know you from Ruth and Tom, but there's a lot of other things you've done that I think are really exciting and really cool to give people insight into how broad your work is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just as for my English, definitely is not perfect, but you will discover this beautiful French accent. So I hope you will love that. And yeah, I think I have like so many things like to explain. So yeah, I hope it will be interesting, and I will like kind of translate all these things into like proper English. So yeah. And also I want to say that David, you was one of the first one, like just really like to trust me, not to trust, but to like to meet and really like to exchange a lot. At the time you worked with Super Sapiens, so we exchanged like 2 years ago, I think, maybe more, in Argentière, because you are like familiar with the Chamonix Valley. So yeah, thank you so much, like to have trust me and to like give me like a lot of good insights, and also like trust myself into my job. So yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, so you have like a lot of insight about the jobs I was doing before Ruth and Tom. It's always the same when you are doing one big achievement, like people are discovering you just for that. But yeah, I was like working since 3 years in this field. So just like to read you a little bit like the history, I was doing my master thesis in Berkeley. So pretty interesting, and we need to choose like one subject to just destruct this subject, and just like to really like deep dive into this. So I just chose my two passions in my life. That was mathematics and also data science. No, so mathematics and also sports. And I said, okay, how we can optimize performance through data, and how we can like interview a lot of guys doing that. And like 3 or 4 years before, it was really like an unknown field, like a really taboo thing. So I interviewed like the co-founder of Strava, Mark Guinea, a really lovely guy. I managed to discuss too with Killian, and then I was like writing these things, and then I managed like to work with some athletes. And I was just at the beginning with Peter. I met him, sorry, in the streets of Chamonix, and I was asking him, oh, okay, guy, I saw you have like this kind of super sapiens sensor, and he has also like a baguette under his arm, so it was funny. So I was asking him, okay, can I ask you some question, because I'm writing this specific chapter on super sapiens and like a glucose monitor. So we took one coffee, then two, then three, and that was the story. And then after, I managed like to interest him to my specific skills, especially pacing. So we work at the very beginning with him, and he was super kind. And like 3 years ago, my algorithm and all my data science things was pretty not very good. So that was cool, but like when I compare like this algorithm and like the algorithm now, it's like really nothing the same. So yeah, he trusts me, and then I try to help him on different subjects as acing and also like pulling. His question was when I need to use my pole in this kind of races. So it was pretty interesting. And then after, I managed like to train myself with like some other project. I was really like a student at the moment. Especially, we try to break the French hour record. So you need like to cycle during 1 hour in a velodrome. So pretty interesting. And then after, more and more in trail, and then I was contacted by the French Federation to help them like to work on the Olympic marathon for the Olympic Games in Paris. So yeah, it was like my first project in using data science for sport.
That's awesome. That's so cool that how it evolved. And I mean, I know Petter a little bit. He's a lovely guy. So you couldn't have got, and he's very data influenced. So you couldn't have bumped into
Mhm.
a better person on the street with a baguette under their arm. But I guess so. You talked about the evolution just there of your initial plans for Petter versus what you've done more recently for Tom and Ruth. What data do you collect to build the pacing plans? Like what goes into your pacing plans? You don't have to give away any secrets, but I know that at one point you wanted me to run the UTMB course over a couple of days so you could get some data, and I laughed at you because it's not possible for me. But what sort of goes into your planning then?
Yeah, I think my method is pretty personal to each athlete. So yeah, I'm used to optimize performance in triathlon too, in biathlon, in ski, in cycling, so different sports, and so I ask very different data. Yeah, because like the athletes are not the same. And for example, if like Peter is asking me, okay, I need to know how and when to use my poles, it will be not at all the same kind of data than Tom saying, okay, I need like to fuel correctly at the beginning of the race, for example. So yeah. For example, for Tom, now I'm using like maybe 50 parameters, 50 data different. So it's of course, age, the sex, age, like all the thresholds, all the durability for all different parameters, like VO2, glucose, lactate, sweet ratio, and all these things, like to really try to adapt and to be very very super close to like the reality. And for example, also like I'm using a lot the foot data, so GCT, ground contact time, stride
Yep.
length, fly time, and it's super useful for me like to define first of all like the technicality of the terrain, and then after how Tom is dealing with this technicality and how we can adapt to it.
Wow, that's a layer deeper than I even knew. Often I ask a question and I know what the answer is going to be, but that's a layer deeper than I even thought. So I guess when you're working with an athlete, you mentioned already that some of it's about the questions they have. Tom's was about nutrition. Petter was talking about when to use poles. If you were to work with an athlete, if they just came to you and said, "Help me win," what are you going to look at for them? Is it going to be about their pacing, nutrition, competitor analysis? Like what else is included for you?
I think if the athletes want to win, I need definitely to find his big matter and like to resolve this big matter and to find like the big abilities and like the low abilities of these athletes to try to improve or to reduce like the defaults. So yeah, I think the vision of Enduraw and with Nutri-pure is really like to have this holistic vision of performance. Is not only like just training or just like pacing or just like nutrition, but you need really like to look at all the parameter. And during my master thesis, I really worked and think about like the 7 pillar of performance. So the goal is really like to like optimize all of these 7 pillars, and also like to see how these pillars can interact like between each other. So yeah, there is like pacing, as you say, there is like competitor analysis that's pretty interesting. It depends really about like the athletes. If the athletes want to like race his own race, and it's more my philosophy, you don't care about like the competitors. But if you have like this strong championship race, you need like to really look at the other guys. And definitely for Tour de France, it will be like a very very big thing to notice. Then nutrition. Then we are working also like with a mental preparatory in France with some guys, like to really work with them to. I think I will give with Scott Johnson like the strategy of the race and the pacing of the race, but it's not super easy for the athlete to understand that, because at the beginning of UTMB he's pretty fresh and he won't like to speed up and he won't like to play with his friends, at the beginning of the race, but is not like the strategy. And so it was pretty interesting to speak with David Splindler, who is a very awesome guy, working in as like a neuropsychologist. He's working with Cavendish. I don't know if you know this story.
Yeah,
That's
I
pretty
do. Yeah,
amazing. And yeah, one of my goal was to say to it like the strategy to that he can translate the strategy to Tom and to use a good words to really like define these things. So yeah, it's pretty different. And with Tom especially, I was like really during all the summer in Argentina, kind of his slaves or is like a domestic, and like to help him like to do the session, like to do the night wiki, all this stuff. So yeah, I spend a lot of time with him, just like to help him and to make his life simpler.
yeah. So you mentioned a couple of the pillars. You said nutrition, you said pacing, you said competitor analysis, you said mental preparation. There's a couple more.
Yeah, I think the first one is training, just like
Yep.
physiologically. So that was really the job of Scott. Then like physical training and like to really be super efficient, like all the proprioception things, how to work on the strength and conditioning and all this stuff. The third one is nutrition and hydration, so pretty important because this is the fuel of the body during the race, but also like during all season. The fourth one is recovery. So how you recover, hot, cold, all this stuff. So pretty interesting to and very linked also to nutrition, of course. The fifth one is mental preparatory. So yeah, like neuropsychology and how you can interact with your mental and your motivation. The sixth one was in my theory, of course, a gear, all the equipment like
Yep.
aerodynamism, like cooling, like shoes, and all this stuff. So that was pretty amazing to do that for Tom for this UTMB. And the last one is strategy. So in a season planification, when are you doing this kind of races? How can we change like the profile of your runner to be more a hiker or more like a flat speed runner? Also like the pacing, the competitor analysis. So all these topics are in strategy, which is more like the job of the data scientist.
Got you. And just for clarity for those listening, so you worked directly with Tom's mental preparation coach, David Spindler, that you mentioned, and then Scott Johnson, who's both Ruth and Tom's coach. So
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that was part of that. And so you worked in there. You didn't do it all because they were involved there as well, which is cool.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yes, say it to me.
No, I was going to ask the next question, which is,
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
know, yeah, you go.
yeah, yes, I think we had like a really great team, and like the role of Scott, I think it's one of the best coach in the world for sure. If you don't follow his work, you need to. He's like a very whole coach, with a lot of experience. He write a really good book, Uphill Athletes, which is like a really nice one,
Yeah,
and
he
definitely he's
co-authored that with Kilian Jornet, training for
who
the uphill athlete.
Killian
Uh,
who.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Pretty
Um,
and super humble, and then I think all this team with also Paul Booth from UK too. So it
yeah.
was pretty nice to have all these experts and yeah, just to work all together like to do this kind of performance for
Yeah.
Tom and Ruth.
So Paul was in nutrition, was the in charge of nutrition, as I understand things. Which he actually
Yeah.
wrote a good article with Strava, so it's on there
Oh,
for you to go have a look at. That's for the listeners. So I know you did all the pacing estimates and plans, and I know the course changed a little bit, so it's a little bit unfair. But how close were you to the predictions for Ruth and Tom?
yeah, for Tom, yeah. So I changed a little bit like the pacing due to the conditions. So I think it was for Tom maybe 25 minutes and 30 seconds due to like the shortening of Pyram Calcaire. And it was super right on time. I think in Trion and Valorcine it was at 1 minute 30 from the pacing plan.
Wow.
And then after he managed to speed up at the end of the race, and he finished with I think 12 minutes in advance comparing to my safe plan.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Ruth, she was a bit
And
different because she took it very easy overnight because she was worried about being cold, I think.
Yeah. So last time it was like the boring second strategy that I did.
Yep.
For example, for this year, for Tom, it was also like the boring second, but this year he managed to be the boring first. So just
Yep.
like to run his own race. So in 2024, yeah, I did this strategy. In 2025, the goal was to take a little bit of risk because like Ruth didn't care about to DNF because like she proved to the sponsor and to the world that she was super strong. So yeah, and also with Courtney, we need also like to really push a little bit more harder and to be in the back of Courtney to try to push her in her limit. So yeah, definitely it was like a little bit faster than the safe pace, and they managed to maintain that until Courmayeur, and then after like she dropped and she lose some time. So yeah, she was much longer, no, not longer, um,
Slower.
yeah, slower than the plan, but
Yep.
it's definitely due to the weather because it's much more Ruth than Tom, and then also because of this strategy of more aggressive, she need to crack at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got you. And what sort of testing did you do to prepare the pacing plans, or what were you doing testing wise with these athletes? Because I've heard some of this, and it's amazing what you were doing.
Um, yeah, I think the first step is really like to understand how the human being is like yeah, using yeah, just living. So yeah, reading a lot of like literature, scientific literature. Then after I'm taking all the data from Strava, Coros, Garmin, whatever, just like to really understand how he's this specific athlete because it's very like personalized, and like elite athletes are some fucking exception comparing to the human being. So that's pretty important to do that. And then after like the data are not that clear and like super precise, so we need like to do some tests to fine tune this kind of models. And then, for example, for Tom, we went to Tenerife Blue Trail in March, and it was pretty fun. So I did the test before the race. Then after he ran this Tenerife Blue Trail, so 110 kilometers, and of course win it. And then after, just at the finish line, I just like took Tom. I took the lactate. There is like a beautiful picture from Rich Gill, which is super nice. And then after, I took Tom and I said, okay, now you need to come with me. I put it on a treadmill and just like doing some tests to understand how all these parameters have degraded, with this 110 kilometers. And that's pretty super important because in trail running, I said always, this is like the domain of unknown because anybody, anyone, sorry, he's running like a UTMB during training. So it's not like a 10 kilometers or maybe like a 800 meters. You are doing like so many times 800 meters in your career. But for UTMB, it's not at all the same thing. And for example, like the substrate oxidation, like all the VO2 max things, the economy is pretty different between like the start in Chamonix and Arnuva, for example, or La Folie with like a 100 and more kilometers. So it was pretty amazing to have this data point to do not guessing, but knowing.
Yeah, and so like you will be, just for clarity for listeners, your thresholds will drop generally with fatigue. So and your carbohydrate oxidation will go up, and all sorts of other things like that. So when you're talking about fuel plans, all this sort of stuff, it all has to change basically.
Yeah,
Um,
the CHO oxidation is much more used to drop.
oh, so it actually goes down, not up. I
Yeah,
thought because thresholds went down, it would actually go up. But that makes sense
and the
because
lipid is taking like much more importance, and that's why that's super important to notice that because the goal is like to give to Tom like the maximal amount of CHO you can.
yep.
But if you are giving like too much to Tom, is going like to have some GI and like to DNF the race, and it's totally like a nightmare. And if you are doing like too less, he can have like as much as fuel that he needs. So yeah, that's pretty a super important point to know that.
Yeah, I love that. So we had coffee in Chamonix before UTMB, and I told you those two were going to win, and you agreed. You were hopeful. But you said to me at the time that you could predict race finish order based on basically some lactate values and some paces for different gradients of running. What's the margin of error in this? Like, how comfortable are you with those estimates?
I think definitely for a race like UTMB, my role is not to predict the finish time. My role is to let the athletes with fresh legs at Champé or at Grand Col Ferret. I think I have much more importance to do that better than to predict like an actual time. So yeah, I said to you that for Tom it was like 12 minutes. On the marathon it can be, I think one time we did for the European Championship in Roma, maybe 11 seconds on the half marathon. So yeah,
Wow.
pretty close. Yeah, I can say okay, I'm 100% sure of that, but just it's my prediction about that. And definitely after analyzing all the data, badly we do not have like a earthway data of Tom, so I can be like super precise to say okay, my strategy was good or not good. But yeah, definitely the
Yeah.
goal is really like to be precise at 1 or 2, maybe 3 BPM, to do not like overcome this threshold and to try to finish strong.
Got you. I love it.
Yeah,
There
I
was a
think for me the best sentence from Tom was during the debrief. So Scott or David was asking, okay, Tom, when do you add some low during the race? And he said, let me think. No, no, never. So I was
wow.
super happy of that because that was my job, like to avoid this kind of flow. And yeah, when he said that, I was say, okay, I succeeded.
Job done. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you succeeded when he won, but yes, also then. So there was some discussion during the live broadcast where you got lots of mentions, which was cool. Very cool for you. I kept texting you saying, "Hey, this person mentioned you," which is great. But there was a lot of talk about you giving live data to Tom. What were you giving to him that was live? Can you share what you were giving from a data perspective?
Yeah, I think as I said, for ultra trail is really, there is a lot of drama in the race, and that's awesome to have this drama because it's part of the sport. So yeah, especially during a UTMB you can have like some different things like Francois DNF, like maybe a 12 minutes difference with Ben or this kind of thing. So yeah, that's pretty important to give that. I think it will be awful to have like a live oreillette, like
Yeah,
earplugs, like to give some information, because we will lose like definitely like the love of the sport. I can do that, and definitely I think it will be like technically possible, but yeah, I think it's not in relationship with the trade spirit and so on. But yeah, we were giving like a lot of information. I think I managed to have a referee team, so I took all my employees and just giving it to them. I'm not sure if I have. Maybe I have the thing here. I will find out. And yeah, like a T-shirt with like this black and white line, so like to be as a referee, and the goal was to give all the timing between the athletes, etc., etc. So during all the race there was with a stopwatch and like kind of things to show like the different times, so just to help the athletes to understand where was the other guys, and to give some information about like weather, for example, what do you need to eat, what do you need to take care about earplugs, about yeah, all these things. So yeah, it was pretty interesting, and I think I said to Tom and Ruth, you have to listen only to this referee. So all the other guys on the trail saying, okay, there is 20 minutes difference. It's forbidden like to listen to it to them, because they will give you some shitty data. So yeah, it was the goal to see this black and white shirt and say, okay, these guys are Joseph team, and like that's okay to hear and to listen. So definitely I can trust this guy, and it give, I think, so much confidence to the athletes just to see a guy and say, yeah, you are doing right. It's awesome for the athlete, I think.
Yeah, so it wasn't really. I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't live data, but it was made out to be a lot more technical than it was. That is very standard data to give everybody at aid stations and between. So yeah, I don't know why they were saying that. But on that note, talking about the spirit of trail running, and it's a sport you're involved with, very passionate about. You organize a local race in Argentière. You do all sorts of stuff, so it's close to your heart. I certainly saw Ruth make a post about people questioning whether like it's within the spirit of the sport to do the sort of data science side of things. And in my take here is it's just the natural evolution. When sport gets more competitive and more money comes, people will get more professional with how they prepare, and this is just part of that. What do you think about it?
Basically, I have two answers. The first one is the answer from this Joseph who loves sport, panache, emotions, and I'm really like working and doing some sports because I want to live this emotion. So the first thing is to have this data science part or aspect is not at all in negation with like the panache and trail spirit. And I think like the race of Ruth last year, it was absolutely a blast, definitely. And I was full of emotion, and I think all the Kiwi and all like the fans of Ruth was pretty like living the moment, and it was so nice to have like this big comeback this year too when she overcome and she passed Courtney. I just cry. Yeah, I can say it to you. I just cry. I was in the aid station like just before to crew for Tom in Trion, and I saw the video, and I was pretty like so much full of emotion. So definitely data can be used with like some panache, and you don't need, and especially French people are always saying that it's very not similar, and you cannot have like these two things, but definitely it can be super linked. And for example, in cycling, like the past 2 years or 3 years, we had like very super nice battles between in the classic and in Paris Roubaix, and all these guys have a lot of data. So yeah, definitely we can have all these things. The second answer, and it's a little bit more cynical, I think, cynical.
Yep.
It's like from the Joseph who want to win. I think some athletes and some big athletes shows that it was possible to win without data. For example, like Courtney, Francois, they are pretty amazing athletes, and they don't use data or science that much. But I think now and right now, nowadays, you can be super good with this interest of science, and maybe not the athlete himself, but at least the coach or the team manager or all these things. So this is like a more cynical answer, but just saying if you are not into this sport, you will lose. So yeah, that's my final thoughts about that.
Yeah. My take on this is that you can get away with talent until people start really having better systems than you. And then the systems will win for a period of time with subpar talent, and then everyone will develop those systems, and then it becomes a talent issue again with the systems being required, right? And trail running is at the evolution of the sport. I was there. It's growing up very quickly. And, we're seeing, doping is part of that, but also like data science is coming in, improved training, all these things, right? So it's the professionalism's going up, and I think it's good. I think it's good for the sport. My hot take, and it's not so hot. It's somewhat informed, is that there's going to be all sorts of things happening in the next couple of years with people domestiquing for each other. They're going to be pacing each other.
Yeah.
There's going to be all sorts of stuff like that coming. So, trail running is going to have some real questions to ask itself and answer. So let's see what happens there. But the last question I had here for you was actually from Zylan, and he asked, "Will you be replaced by AI? How are you thinking about AI in your work?"
That's a good question. That a lot of people are speaking about the AI, and definitely I think it's a buzzword. I'm using like optimization model, and it's just like a beautiful word, so everyone is using a lot. I think AI is super powerful, and it will destruct like 90% of the works in all the life. So I think in 2 years or 3 years, like everyone will be replaced by AI. I think the two things we can be not replaced by AI, manual works, of course, but yeah, I'm just like putting that apart. The first one is like the very niche thing, and I think my kind of job is a very niche because you need to know that much, like the specificity and the technicality and all the experience about the trail. And I have really like this double cap, like really academic experience, expertise, and this field experience. So this niche thing I think will be super difficult because like the AI is not knowing some. For example, I will give you an example. I was working on the western side of Ruth, and I put like all the races into my computer and just like guessing some things. And one parameter was you need like to avoid a lot the aid station because it's bad for performance. So as a runner, I said, maybe there is something wrong in it. So yeah, I just like look at the data, trying to understand how like my model can be that wrong. And then I saw at the first aid station, it was like a bump into like the Earthway. So I said, okay, that's super weird. And I asked Ruth, and she said, okay, no, I struck with a banana. So yeah, my earth race like grew a lot, and so that was because of that. So yeah, my computer was not, and this is AI, was not understanding that and just thinking that was like a bad thing. So yeah, definitely this niche thing is like a very good barrier for me from the AI. And I think the second one is the fame, like the fact that people know that you are doing some good job. For example, people will continue to go to the Katy Perry show or this kind of things because it's Katy Perry, and this is like a kind of a fame around Katy Perry, and I think like AI can never replace this kind of human thing. So I'm not famous at all, but I think the fact like to have worked with these athletes will maybe save my work in the future years.
Well, you're famous in the trail running world. You got 1,000 mentions. You got photos with the winners of the UTMB. Now
Uh,
you're on many French podcasts. Now some English podcasts as well. So you're getting there. Fame is all relative. So we do appreciate you sharing your time, sharing the stories, sharing all this stuff, Joseph. We're going to push. I'm going to put a link to the show notes to Enduraw website. I'd encourage people to go there. And actually, I really enjoy your Strava integration. It tells me all sorts of things
yeah.
about where I've lost time for whatever reasons. So I'd
That-
encourage
that's a
people.
that's a pretty good thing. And if you allow me, definitely, one of the big question I have is your job is definitely like good for elite athletes because they allow us 1% of winning UTMB. But how we can help use that for like mass market runners or maybe like for the society? So definitely, I think for society, my role is definitely to I think I have a social role, and to win UTMB or just to help people to win some minutes at UTMB is not at all like a social fulfillment for me. So my kind of social role is also like to help the world and maybe like to help diabetics or maybe like people in overweight or this kind of things by using all the models we did. For example, with the athletes we know like super well like the consuming of CHO and lipid. So to know that will be super, I think, interesting for overweight people, for example. So that's kind of one of my big motivation in my job actually, and that's why we launched this Enduro report. And the goal is really to try to define what is the cost of the wind, the temperature, the altitude, and all these things, and elevation gain too. So yeah, it's pretty. I think I always say that Strava is a cemetery of data. Do you know what is cemetery?
Yeah, cemetery of data. Yeah, for
Cemetery,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was not sure about the word, but yeah, and definitely it's super hard like to compare like two sessions because of this wind, this temperature, and all this stuff. So my goal is really like to give to a lot of people, and if you are like a listener of the podcast, definitely you can use it. And Tom is using it also, like to try to define what is the cost of the different like external parameters to try to really compare apples and apples.
Yeah, well, you do a better job than Strava does, and you're only one man in your bedroom in Chamonix. So I think that speaks enough. So
they are doing like a very nice job, but of course they need like to take care about like I know 150 millions of users, and I'm just like taking care of some athletes. But definitely, I think my goal maybe will be like to be by Strava. Just like to put this kind of insight directly on the Strava app.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll share some links in the show notes, and we really appreciate you joining us here.
Yeah, thank you so much, David, and see you.
David, thanks so much for that chat. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I'm stoked to get Joseph on. It was one of the few English interviews he's done, so really appreciate him.
Before we go, let's get to the doctor's office. Rojas, who was triple jumping, has left the doctor's office.
Yeah, so she tore her Achilles 2 years ago and is back. She did an auto cue, so a really long jump on her first jump coming back. So she tore it. So it's really impressive given how important that Achilles is for transfer of force. So speaks volumes to her rehab and her team there. So she was very talented, tore that Achilles, and I thought, well, that'll be career over. But yeah, I was wrong. It's really impressive.
And then who is Georgie Beamish?
Geordie Beamish is the guy that won the steeplechase. He's the one that went down and got stood on. It looked like he got his face stood on. It's probably worse.
Yes.
Probably he's a Kiwi bloke. It was probably worse on. It looked worse on social than it was in reality. But he also, he finished in a 2:32 kilometer over barriers. 2:32 over barriers. That's 30 seconds faster than I can run a kilometer, and he had hurdles to jump over.
Unbelievable.
That is so wild. I was just like, this is really impressive. So, I just wanted to give him a bit of a shout out there. He was at the doctor's office because he got his face kicked, apparently.
What are we watching this weekend?
More track and field champs, and then the Berlin Marathon is on Sunday, despite the fact that it sort of snuck up on us.
I'm traveling to Rwanda on Saturday to the Cycling World Championships, which I'm very happy about. I'm very excited about the cycling world coming to Africa for the first time under this banner. But I'm also bummed about all the sports I'll be missing this weekend. Lots and lots going on. You and one of our listeners, Stephen Lacey, gave me a hard time for the Springboks losing to the All Blacks 2 weeks ago in the rugby. What did we do this past weekend? We gave the All Blacks their biggest loss ever.
Yeah, it's good. I'm happy. I support the Springboks as well.
Love it, man. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Thanks for downloading, for streaming. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, we'd ask you to do so right now. David, thank you so much. You will be back here next week with Christy Storachuk.
I will be. Cool. Thank you, mate. Enjoy and safe travels.
Thank you. Catch you on the next one.